Right, before we start this video, this is not the preview for the quarterfinals. This is the review for the last games of the group stages. So, what could have been? What could have been for this New Zealand team? I said a few days ago when New Zealand drew against Japan that they could very well end up regretting that game, be it with the draw that they would have gotten in the quarterfinals or elimination. As it turned out, they have been eliminated, and what could have been. New Zealand were unlucky at times, not only in this game, but against Australia, for example. They certainly played a good game against Australia, but you need more than just luck and one good game to go through to the quarterfinals. And it's a shame to see New Zealand go, because New Zealand could have given Belgium a game with the right circumstances if New Zealand was up for it. With Belgium having some problems on the pitch now, with Alexander Hendricks having taken a stick to the head, with Gunnar not playing, the Kerpel injured, Tombo not 100%. It could have been an interesting game, but that was not New Zealand just did not turn up, and Spain were lucky today, but to keep Australia to one goal, even though Australia didn't play very well, and then to score in the last seconds of the game, that takes some guts and that takes some talent, and that Spanish team has gotten through to the quarterfinals, where they will face Belgium now. For the preview, I'll keep most of the preview for the actual preview video, but that'll be a very, very tough game for Spain. And if we look at the game that Spain played today, 1-1 against Australia. Now, Australia, you could see that they were resting. They were taking it a little easier. They weren't necessarily resting players, but they were definitely taking it easier, making sure that no one got injured, making sure that the tank wasn't empty, because they knew very well that no matter who they faced today, they would face a strong opponent in the Netherlands, Great Britain, or Germany. And as it turns out, it's a cracker of a game for Australia in the quarterfinals against the Netherlands. Certainly a game that I did not expect to see in the quarterfinals, but I'm all up for it. I'm up for it, and that game could go either way, especially if Australia decide to play like they did today against Spain. Now, Spain has been lucky at this tournament. We have to acknowledge it. Their last minute, it wasn't very last minute, in the latter stages of the game, equalising against an Argentina side that wasn't very strong. In the last seconds of the game today, equalising against an Australia team that certainly wasn't 100%. Now, yes, they have had some luck, but equally, Spain has been the team that was predicted to go through to the quarterfinals over New Zealand. And I'm happy to announce that I have my predictions for Group A perfectly on point. Australia, I predicted to finish first, then India, then Argentina, then Spain, then New Zealand, then Japan. And that is how the group has ended. Now, it could have gone completely different, of course. And Japan today as well, though they did finish last, and I know I have been saying the same things about Japan, that they're very entertaining to watch, that they are actually quite a decent team. And especially after their victory over Germany, no, that was South Africa, sorry. Especially after their draw against New Zealand, and after their game against Australia, they convinced a lot of people that Japan is not just a host, but they are actual competitors at the Olympics. And it's a shame to see them finish fourth. Now, it's a shame to see anyone finish sixth. Sorry, I'm not very well awake now, obviously, with the games that have been played throughout the night. Obviously, Japan finished sixth, but it's a team with Japan that is on the rise, and I wouldn't be surprised to see them at a next edition of the Olympic Games soon, where they would qualify over another team, like maybe New Zealand, like maybe Malaysia. I would not be surprised, but this group was just too strong, and India was just too strong. Now, we haven't seen India at 100%, I feel like. Against Australia, they just weren't at the races at any point. Against Argentina, they had quite a few moments where they left a lot to be desired. And against Japan today as well, they weren't very, very good. But they have finished second in the group with 12 points out of a possible 15. And were it not for a terrible game against Australia, they might have actually finished first. So although India hasn't been at 100%, they're still a very, very good team. You can't just finish second in a group with the team that they have here, with the teams that they have to face without being good, even if you don't play well. That requires some serious, serious talent. And they will face Great Britain. Now, Great Britain today, that's a good segue because there's not much else to say about Group A. It was a very open group, and it was pretty obvious that Australia was going to finish first. But again, New Zealand could have done more. Spain definitely lucky. Argentina lucky as well, if we're honest here. But these are the teams that everyone expected to go through. And India, as I said, will face Great Britain, which today, again, were unlucky against Belgium. And it's fair to say that they should have won. Now, we could go into the debate about the refereeing and about the video refereeing at the Olympics, and I have thought about making that video, but because a lot of it is not, a lot of it is relevant, but in the grand scheme of things, when you look at certain games where the umpire has made a mistake or the video has made a mistake, and because of the scoreline where it could have been, for example, 9-1 that Belgium played, or 9-4, it doesn't really have a great impact on the grand scheme of things. Today it did. Obviously, there was, so if you haven't seen the game ended 2-2, but at one stage, Great Britain, when the game was 1-0 to Great Britain, they scored to make it 2-0. However, they had already used their referral. The ball had crossed the line. The umpire hadn't seen it for some reason. He should have seen it. Belgium, I think that was also very unsportsmanlike from them. Their first place finish in the group was guaranteed. It was very unsportsmanlike, in my opinion, to not admit that that ball had crossed the line. Now, if it was an honest mistake by Bokak and that he just simply truly thought that the ball hadn't crossed the line, fine. But for the refereeing spot, it just wasn't good enough. Now, what I will say about the refereeing and video is there is a debate to be had, and I put a tweet out at TomahawkHCKY on Twitter if you're not following me, where I thought, yes, the referral, it's a good system that if you get it wrong, you lose it. But I think the rule should be changed, that if you have lost your referral, and that for some reason, like today, the ball crosses the line according to your team, and the referee hasn't seen it, you should still be able to review that. Now, if the ball did indeed cross the line, good. That goal should then stand. If the ball did not cross the line, in my opinion, then that could lead to a green card for the team that had lost its referral and yet asked for another one to review a potential goal. Now, is that something that FIH might do? I don't think they will, simply because I just don't see them changing a rule so quickly because of one action. Now, if it happens in the final, I can see it, but because it happened in the group stages, I just don't see them changing it. Now, if enough people press FIH for it, maybe, but I mean, FIH has had many problems recently that they could have addressed or that they could have done differently. And that's not to say that FIH is terribly run. No, they are actually well run. Yes, they have some things which make me question their integrity at times, which makes me question if some of the decisions that they make is truly best for hockey. But yeah, I mean, I don't expect them to change it. Now, Group B changed drastically today. Great Britain came into this game day as the second team, Germany as the fourth team, if I'm not mistaken, and Belgium just wasn't good. Belgium. Let's start with Belgium. Great Britain. They just weren't good because let's finish that discussion first. Great Britain definitely deserved that victory here. They were the better team in many stages of the game. They were pressing high, trying to get those goals. Even when Belgium clawed their way back, they scored the equaliser. Great Britain went for it. They went for that goal. They got that second goal. Yes, Belgium came back, scored a second goal, and then that's it for the game. Great Britain should have won, and Belgium, although they have had games against Canada, against South Africa, where they absolutely demolished that defence, scoring 9 in both games, we have seen that in some of their games and at the European Championships, that was the same story. Offensively, if they don't score the goals, how do they win those games? Because defensively, that has been a leaky defense. And I don't exactly know how they're going to address it. I don't know if they're going to play a five at the back, if they're going to play with a midfielder or two even lower to ensure that the counter-attacks that they have faced don't result in goals that often, or that they don't give away penalty corners that often. And I would say that if Aaron Forsyth had played today for Great Britain, Belgium would have likely been punished. Now, yes, Belgium also had their problems that Gouniard didn't play, De Kerpel is injured, Hendricks took a stick to the face. Now, it doesn't look like it's a broken nose, so that's good news for Belgium and Hendricks. But they have been depleted by quite a bit, and because of those absentees, because of those injuries, that will have taken a lot out of the players today. And it'll be interesting to see how Spain responds to that. Now, obviously, Spain has played a very intense game against Australia as well. But I'm expecting fatigue to start playing a part in those quarterfinals. I don't want to spoil too much for the quarterfinals, though, because that preview video is coming. But it'll be an interesting game nonetheless. Germany against the Netherlands was the game that would have likely decided the fate of this group had Great Britain not won, which they didn't. And it's fair to say that Germany today turned up when it mattered most. Now, obviously, at the European Championships, we saw with Germany that they had trouble in defence against France, against the Netherlands as well, with passes from the Netherlands 25 that just got through the entire Germany team. Germany hasn't been great, let's say that. They have been good, and they're still obviously very strong, but they haven't been great yet. Sorry. But today, when it mattered most, they started. They played like a team that is in contention for an Olympic medal, and they started off really well with a goal from Vellen in the first 10 minutes. And from there on out, it really was a matter of the Netherlands trying to not concede a second, because they knew that if they conceded a second, they would have likely had a long way to claw back, and Germany would have then gone on to score a third and potentially a fourth. But for Germany, it's the same story, that they were worried about conceding. They didn't want to concede a goal of their own and have the momentum switch and go into the Dutch's favour, like it happened at the European Championships in their second encounter. And both teams really, it wasn't a boring game by no means, but it wasn't a barn burner. Now, a more entertaining game would have obviously been a 5-6 or a 7-6 or a 5-3 or 6-4, with both teams scoring goals left, right, and centre. But that wasn't the kind of game that it was today. It was a very tactical game. Both teams obviously knew that with Great Britain having to play still, a bad result, even if Great Britain lost, could mean that they would finish fourth. And that bad result has come for the Netherlands at the worst of times. They just weren't at the races today defensively. There were problems. Germany just played through them too easily at times. Now, they have a very strong defense. They have a very strong goalkeeper. But today just wasn't their day. And maybe it's best for them that that game happened today rather than in the quarterfinals. Now, the Netherlands did get a goal back in the 57th minute with Hertzberger getting a goal. But that was just a consolation prize. And although it's a consolation prize, it might actually turn out to be more important than we think, because that proves that, yes, even if you're down 3-0, you can get a goal for the Netherlands. You can maybe claw your way back against Australia in the quarterfinals, if that is what they will need to do. That obviously remains to be seen with the game still having to be played, but it's very interesting nonetheless, and I can't wait for those quarterfinals. And the last game, obviously, which had absolutely no bearing on the quarterfinals, or on the group stages rather. It would have been completely different had South Africa won against the Netherlands, or had Great Britain lost against the Netherlands. But it was more of a friendly game. I wouldn't call it a friendly game, of course. It was still a competitive game, and it was a very entertaining game with some good quality from both sides. But it had the stakes were not there. Canada were playing for their honour. South Africa were playing to show the world that after beating Germany, that wasn't a fluke. They can still go on and dominate the smaller team in Canada. And it wasn't that kind of game. Obviously, South Africa scored very early on and then got the second goal after 10 minutes. But Canada came back very, very well, and actually, this was the Canadian team that I was expecting at these Olympics. We saw a Canadian team against Ireland for the qualifiers that dared to attack, that dared to take the game to the opponent, and that wasn't afraid to try new things out in order to get those goals. We didn't really necessarily see that at this tournament, unfortunately for Canada, and I'm kind of left with not with a sour taste in my mouth, but with a sense of what could have been if they maybe had done a few things differently. And South Africa, everyone has seen South Africa play. They scored 4 against Belgium. They were leading the Netherlands 3-0, could have been 4. They defeated Germany 4-3. South Africa is a nation with not very much funding at all, if any, and yet they play as a team. They play for each other. They do the runs for each other. They don't care who gets the goals, and it's a beautiful thing to see. And it's a little sad to see them go. It's sad to see them go. If I'm very honest, I would have rather seen South Africa than the Netherlands, simply because of that underdog story. Now, yes, for the quarterfinals, Australia Netherlands is a more appealing on paper fixture than South Africa versus Australia. Did I say South Africa versus the Netherlands? Australia versus Netherlands, of course, is a more appealing on paper fixture than South Africa versus Australia. But yeah, I mean, I hope to see them soon. I hope to see them soon. I salute South Africa. I salute the players. It's been an excellent, excellent tournament from them. But the group stages have finally concluded. We have our quarterfinals: Australia versus the Netherlands, Germany versus Argentina, India versus Great Britain, and Belgium versus Spain. Now, the preview is coming tomorrow. I think it's definitely coming before the game starts. It might be today still, but it's more likely coming tomorrow. So, if you've enjoyed these videos for the group stages, and if you'd like to see more, because I will do more, and if you've enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing to the channel. Please consider liking the video. I thank you very, very much for watching, and I'll talk to you later.